What is next for Space Engineers 2? The early access game has just released its second major update, this being the Planets and Survival Foundations update. Now, that of course has brought much needed features to the game that the player community have been very excited for. However, with the release of these two major features, and some others in the VS2 update, many are wondering what is next for the in-development game. Well, it's actually rather exciting. Hello everyone, my name is Captain Jack and welcome to the channel. Today, we're going to be talking about what is coming up for Space Engineers 2 in 2026 and beyond. Of course, we'll talk about water. Naturally, this is the big feature that is next up for Space Engineers 2. Or is it? But before we do get to water, there is actually some other exciting updates to talk about, including weapons and other much requested blocks for the game. If you do enjoy these videos, consider subscribing to stay up to date. And if you do want to support the development of my video content, consider becoming a YouTube member by hitting that join button, or checking out my Patreon. We're actually thinking of starting a new supporter Space Engineers community server. So if you'd like to help us create that, then become a member and hopefully we'll be playing the game together soon. Oh, and while you are watching, comment how you're finding Space Engineers 2. Have you tried survival? Are you waiting for water? Are you waiting for multiplayer? Let me know in the comments. Anyway, let's talk about the features. The first part of 2026 will bring new colonization contracts and sectors to the Almagest system. Currently, when you're in Space Engineers 2, you may notice that several sectors on the colonization screen are kind of locked away. As such, these will hopefully open up soon. My hope for new contracts is perhaps they'll come in a different variety from the ones we've currently got in the game. While fun, I would like to see something a bit different from go here, fix this. They kinda get a bit old after a while. The same could be said for these new sectors. Is it worth unlocking and adding them now if they'll be the same that we currently have? That is something we'll hopefully learn more about in the coming months as we enter the new year. Please stay tuned for updates on that. Hostile sectors, with like space storms and perhaps nebula, could be fascinating. Now that may be too much of the game at this stage of development. Even though I've just said that, we do know the developers are planning on upgrading the Delphos sector of the map, this basically being the brown dwarf, and it will have like its kill sector around it, so if you get too close to it, your grid will probably explode and the player will die. So at least some sort of hazardous environment is coming along with Space Engineers 2. I still hope we see things like nebula or space storms. That'd be really, really exciting, but maybe that'll be later on in development and not part of the core systems just yet. VS 2.2 is called the Survival Extensions Update, and it's perhaps the most anticipated for Space Engineers 2, besides water and multiplayer updates. This update will finally provide us with weapons. We don't know too much about these at the moment. We might be seeing a similar type of vanilla weapon loadout that is kind of in Space Engineers 1, this being the Gatling guns and rocket launchers. Likely it'll be both turrets and static versions. I hope so, that would be cool. I would be pleasantly surprised if a railgun was added to Space Engineers 2 right away. I hope so, but I'm also not expecting it. We have seen some concept art of handheld weapons. This is a rocket launcher that the player can use. You can see this on screen now. There is also concept art and textures for the Space Engineers 2 rifle, which appears to have been evolved from a Space Engineers 1 weapon. I actually really like this design. It looks futuristic, but it does fit the SE graphic style. Now, speaking about weapons, we've only seen concept for handheld weapons. I do hope we're going to see some ship-to-ship weapons. That'd be kind of cool, because then we can start making your own little combat scenarios, even though we don't have multiplayer. So hopefully it's not just handheld weapons, and I hope we're not being baited into that. Mechanical blocks will be added. We've seen previews of what these would look like. You can see them on screen now. The Piston is making its debut, meaning we can finally push and pull things around. Great for those of you who want to make working elevators or complex landing gears for your ships. Yes, the Rotor is also coming to this update. I'm excited to make some auto solar farms, both on the ground and in space. Rotors just make the world feel more alive, I think. Based on the concept art, this rotor may be able to extend like the Piston. That'd be interesting to check out, and also interesting to see what people come up with. Hinge blocks are also coming, along with vehicle tyres. I was going to say ground vehicles, but some will find a way to use them in space, so you guys can crack on. Now it is possible that both hinges and vehicle tyres may not come in the update 2.2, but perhaps later on before the next major updates. Hopefully they do come along soon. Launching planets without tyres was a little bit disappointing, but you know, hopefully they'll come along at some point. Let's talk about area welding. This is a new feature coming in the VS 2.2 update. Now, the game developers have recognised that while the 25cm unified grid system gives players, like you and me, much more creative control, the downside is having to weld all these tiny blocks up in survival mode. To counter this, they will introduce the area welding feature. It will give you the tools to build with that precision in practice. A full-blown GPS system will be introduced with this update. Currently, the in-game GPS is rather basic and there's not really much you can do with it. Therefore, seeing this implementation will help players navigate around the game world, which is sorely needed. Since many features in the VS 2.2 update build on what was introduced in the Planet's Survival update, aka VS2, the game developers are aiming to introduce these at a faster pace, which is good news for those of us wanting to try them out. This update is expected to be released in the first or second quarter of 2026. The Water update is the next major update for Space Engineers 2. However, before we talk about VS3, it's worth noting that VS4, the multiplayer co-op update, will be in development at the same time. Therefore, as the developers have pointed out, one may arrive before the other. At the moment, VS3 Water is scheduled first. Obviously this is the Water update, which we'll talk about in just a moment. However, the multiplayer co-op update may arrive first. It depends on what progresses first in development of Space Engineers 2. We'll talk more about multiplayer co-op later on in the video. The developers are currently working on the Biblos planet. This is a water world planet that will come along later in development. Now, obviously, don't expect to see this in game just right now because obviously planets have been implemented, but the water isn't there yet. This planet will only contain a few islands and some volcanoes. We haven't seen a massive amount of footage from this planet yet, likely because water is still in development for Space Engineers 2. We have seen some examples of underwater flora and the environment, which looks fantastic. It seems the goal of the game is to make the transition from land to water feel more natural and alive. This means that underwater will have its own vegetation and lighting. Recently, we've seen the game developers testing water propellers in-game, and they are working. Earlier this year, in October, they were fine-tuning the water engines. You could see the ships moving through the water, which does look impressive. You can see an example video on screen and some concept art of the thrusters. The developers have been testing how water in Space Engineers 2 interacts with block states. What I mean by this is if you grind down a block, it is obviously no longer fully complete. As such, water can flow through it. As you can see, the game developers have been testing how this works, and so far, it looks really cool. This is about ensuring water behaves as players would expect. So far, we've also seen more concept art of blocks that will likely be included in the water update. These include the water tank and water pump. We've seen examples of that before, with videos included in the Space Engineers 2 Pioneer Edition. One previously showed the water pump working and transporting water from ground to space. More water experiments have been developed over the past months. This includes ocean waves tessellation, which is about getting the shape and feel of the water correct, as well as textured water foam. Naturally, there is much more to water physics than we could possibly discuss in this video. However, we have gone in depth on it before, so I encourage you to check it out on those videos, which you can find here on the Captain Jack channel. If you'd like perhaps a full in-depth video on the water physics in Space Engineers 2 and what we know so far, let me know and maybe we can produce that. Oh, if you want to come and share your Space Engineers experiences, both in the first game and the new second game, join my Discord server using the link in the video description. I want to see what you guys are building. Not much has been said about multiplayer for Space Engineers 2. It's no surprise that its absence in the current build is disappointing to the player community. I for one expected it to be arriving a lot sooner. Still, a multiplayer version has been added to the Space Engineers 2 roadmap on the website. Unfortunately, this version is only 4-player co-op, but it does lay the foundation for what we hope will be a fully dedicated server multiplayer in the future. Currently, again, this multiplayer will only be 4-player co-op. I hope that as we enter 2026, we hear more about the behind-the-scenes development of Space Engineers 2's multiplayer. I say this because multiplayer in Space Engineers 1 has never been perfect. Without community add-ons, such as Torch or Nexus, creating large multiplayer servers that actually work is difficult and can lead to significant performance issues. I could really go in depth on this, particularly when you're hosting servers. SE is only able to use Windows servers and not Linux, which is kind of annoying from a server hosting perspective. So, with this said, I would love to hear that multiplayer and its stability is a main priority from the game developers. This is a worry for the community right now. We can see this being addressed in the future. Full multiplayer is expected to come later down the line and currently does not have a release date on the Space Engineers 2 roadmap. VS4 will also introduce NPCs. We've previously been told to expect better NPCs in Space Engineers 2 than we have in the first game, but we still don't know much of information about this right now, or how they work, or what they're going to be doing. It does appear they'll be the one giving out contracts, so we should see the replacement of the contract block that is currently in game. So that's an overview of what's going on next for Space Engineers 2. The game is making significant progress, but it still has a long way to go before people can really start playing it properly as a full-blown video game, in my opinion. Sure, the foundations for survival are in place, but the systems are not yet complete. One of the significant improvements that many in the community are waiting for is the ability to rebind keys. Currently, you can't do that in-game. We expect to see this in 2026, given it's a key role in in-game accessibility, and they kinda need to address it sooner rather than later. While we've got a lot of fun updates on the way for the game, I'm personally hoping that we'll see multiplayer, aka the 4-player co-op system, come sooner rather than later. While yes, Water is fascinating, I am more excited about jumping into Space Engineers 2 and playing it with my friends. Yes, many of you want Water, but for myself, I just enjoy playing the game with my friends. Hopefully, we'll see that soon in 2026. I actually asked my community what they would prefer, multiplayer or Water first. This is what the community vote on YouTube stands at when I'm editing this video. I should say, including dates in the roadmap is very helpful. This is a significant improvement over the first version of the roadmap from King Software House, which did not provide clear visibility into when and where these game updates would arrive. This may be the first time in Space Engineers history that dates are present on the roadmap. Now, please do share your thoughts on the upcoming updates to Space Engineers 2 in the comments below. That's it from me today. If you want to keep up to date with the development of Space Engineers 2 and other sci-fi video games, then hit that subscribe button to never miss a video from myself, Captain Jack. And for now, I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.